Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. This is a Ukraine war update live chat, a bit of a session with German aid to Ukraine. I've spoken to German aid to Ukraine a number of times previously, usually when there have been sort of big things to report in terms of what Germany has been helping Ukraine with, military aid and packages and assistance and whatnot, economic assistance. But actually today is more about what he has produced in terms of his website and an interface that we can all hopefully use and appreciate, and explaining his position as maybe a go-to between the German government, who are very transparent, and us as people very much interested in the war. And also we're going to be talking about latest news from Germany in terms of aid to Ukraine, and some political discussion no doubt will follow. Anyway, German aid to Ukraine, thank you very much for coming back on. How have you been?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan, for the invitation. I'm glad to be back. I guess it's my third or fourth time now, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm great. I'm great. As always, I'm super nervous. You know how I am. But apart from that, I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, normally I provide you with some questions ahead of here, but I have no questions. They're in my head, so we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. So just to give people who don't know you that well a bit of an introduction to you, or reintroduction to you, how did you get interested in this war? What did you start doing and why in terms of reporting on it? And then what has that meant that you've needed to do, and how you've developed your website to be able to reflect the increasing amount of aid actually that Germany has been providing for Ukraine?
Yeah. So how do I get in, or how do I got interested into this war? I think it started like before the war actually happened. For all those who don't know, I'm 26 years old now. So I was not a full age when Russia invaded Crimea. So I'm honestly wasn't interested in that so much. Later, I heard in the German news about Russian troops gathering around the border. Sorry, I was very interested in it. I thought like, nah, this can't be happening. Like it's just some move, and I became more and more interested in what's happening around them. And then the war started, the full-scale invasion, and I created my first Twitter account, and I was following accounts like Oryx, for example, very, very closely. And in the meantime, I saw that the news about Germany weren't really involving. A lot of details were missing out, and nobody seems to pick up for the international community. So at one point I said, fuck it, let's go ahead. When nobody else do it, I do it myself. And that's how my project started.
Yeah, if you want a job if you want a job done well, you got to do it yourself, as they say. So yeah, and you started the channel, and it has grown as a repository of information and a go-to place for people to and sometimes you've kind of reprimanded me, rightly so, for saying, hey mate, come to me first before you say that. So when I do my military aid videos and I may have got something slightly wrong, or it's been developed a little bit since when I said something, you said, mate, come to me first, because actually this is what's happened rather than that. And that is just goes to show that you have established yourself in the open source intelligence community as someone that knows what they're talking about with regard to the war in Ukraine vis-a-vis German aid, to the point where you are part of the Turchny team as well. And every Sunday, where they do their Sunday night live stream, you present your German aid to Ukraine segment on that. And that is really important. These guys are interested in obviously informing the public, but also interested in accuracy, which is obviously something that you feel strongly about, I take.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think detailed and actually verified information are very, very needed. We see it every day that I don't want to say names now, but some big accounts just, spitting out half truths just for gaining followers, gaining viewers, making ad revenue. And I think, in my personal opinion, half truths are very dangerous. So that's part of what I'm doing, and that's also part of Tochny, what we are doing last Sunday. So yesterday we had a great discussion with a journalist who is living in Kherson, for example, and about the Russian attacks on all the civilians. And I was
Yeah, is it
yeah,
Sabrina Zabriskie? Is that her
yes,
name?
yes, yes. It was very interesting, and that's part of what we are doing. And I'm honestly very, very glad that I'm part of this group.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really great. And actually, what's fascinating about this is, as you can see there, Zarina Zabriskie, she was talking with Brendan Kelly. I've had Brendan Kelly on twice to talk about the Kherson murders, really, the Russian targeting of Ukrainian civilians in Kherson. And she has been reporting on that from the ground with her own personal experiences and speaking with Brendan on that is, yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, well said. Now you have developed, finally, I say finally because it's something you've been working on for some time now, and you've been like, right, when this is up and running, can I come on and have a little chat about it? Of course, you've been working on your interface here, your new look website. Tell us what you want to do with this website and how it works.
So what you're showing right now is my news website. So it's basically which is available since, I believe, now about 10, 11 months, something like this. So I basically put out long and very detailed articles, probably the most detailed ones you can find on the internet. At least most of the times, about what's going on, basically. So everything which doesn't fit in one tweet, I put out a long article and basically explain it, all that kind of stuff. So, for example, this one, what you're showing right now, this is probably like 5 or 6 tweets worth of what I've tweeted before, and then I put it together in one article, so people have like one source to go everything through. And the new website, which I was actually developing, is not the news website. I haven't updated the links yet. Thanks for reminding me. So this still redirects you to the official website by the German government. But after the domain of mine, when you just put en behind it, that's the yes, exactly. That's the new website which I developed and I put out. Took me a long time, but to be honest, it took me much longer, months longer than expected, just because I was focusing on the journalistic work. And I've worked on the new website, so this one, the database, for like maybe 1 hour, 2 hours every couple of days, because I was writing so many articles and doing so much research, and yeah, didn't have time for anything else.
So this gives you a database of all of the equipment that Germany has given to Ukraine. So as of the 29th of September, which is the last time they've announced anything, I presume, this is what is listed. Talk us through how we understand all this and how we'd look through this.
Yeah, so the main page, or the main function, basically, is the military aid database, which is, I think, the stuff people are most interested in, right? And on the top, we have the latest deliveries, basically, where you can find everything which was made public during the latest update by the German government, or for example, when our Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius, announced a new package and says, hey, we have delivered something or we have pledged something, then I updated this immediately, like on the same day or maximum a day later. When you would need to wait for the German government to update their website, it sometimes takes 2, 3, or maybe 4 weeks until the stuff actually gets listed there. And on the top, like I said, the latest deliveries. Then we have the total deliveries. So everything which was delivered since February 2022 is the next segment. Everything is categorized in its own categories, basically. And on the very bottom, you have all the pledged assistance, basically. So that's the main page. You see all the relevant information, which the government also gives you on their website, like how much and what was delivered. And for me, I have also listed sources for the pledges, which you have open right now. I've listed if this is a new pledge or is an old one. And for everything else, I've also listed detailed button. So basically, when you're interested into seeing like what is this kind of military assistance or what is this kind of military assistance, then you can click on these buttons and it automatically redirects you to the manufacturer site or to Wikipedia, where you have detailed explanation of what is going on. And also included is my complete media database. So basically, all the images and all the videos I have for all kinds of military assistance Germany has delivered everything is public right now. You can look it up, download it, share. It's completely free for to see for everyone. And that's the Sorry, go ahead. I'm
Well, no,
rambling on.
no. I'm particularly interested in planned deliveries because this is so. Is this stuff that definitely isn't there, or you just aren't sure whether it's there yet?
No, planned deliveries is what is pledged right now. So, for example, we have already delivered plenty of Gepards and Cheetahs to Ukraine, but we have also pledged 12 more. Now, and these will be delivered in the future. That's the planned deliveries.
Yeah. So this is really interesting because this is what's still to come, and
Yes.
there is a bunch of stuff on here. I mean, there is a serious amount of equipment that Germany is still due to get to Ukraine. So Iris-T SLM, that's a medium-range surface-to-air missile system. 8 of those, I presume, is that the system or is that a launcher?
That's the
Or
whole
how?
fire unit. That's the whole fire unit. So the whole system, as you would say, yes. So
Yeah.
multiple launchers, the radar, all the supply vehicles, etc., etc.
And then you've got 18 launchers, the SLS, which would be for the short range. 18 of those. I mean, just that alone is a staggering amount of air defense equipment. 12 Cheetahs thrown in as well. They are the Dutch upgraded version of the Gepard self-propelled guns. And then, you got some Stingers, Manpads. Now, this is interesting. Skynex, they're if we look at this, so if I just put in Skynex AD, network air defense. So these are the ones from Rheinmetall that are, you can see the image there. It is basically like a modern Gepard, I guess, in a sense. They are due to get a couple of those out. A couple of those have been delivered already, I believe. I mean, it's fantastic. So Germany still has an awful lot of stuff to give Ukraine. Are you excited about some of this stuff getting there?
Yeah, I'm basically excited for everything because every bit helps Ukraine. I think that was the most diplomatic answer one could give, right? But particularly interesting, not actually the Skynex, but the remote control Howitzers 155. To be honest, that's
Right.
probably, in my opinion, the most interesting stuff which is on there right now, pledged. I mean, it's the most modern artillery system in the world. Ukraine will be the first user. And they get their first system already this year or the beginning of 2025, so in the next few months.
So what's interesting about this is a replacement for the UK AS90. So we've got this self-propelled howitzer that we're phasing out. We're basically giving all them to Ukraine. I was reporting on this in my last video, which isn't out yet, but I've recorded it. But we've got another 10 of those on the way. And then I think we're going to be mainly out of them. There's probably a few more that we can give that we're training on. And then we're going over to this as a kind of German-British I think we're making it together, but it's essentially a German piece of kit. The idea for this is that it only requires, am I correct, in having 2 crew members at the moment, with a view to it being future proof so that it can be operated autonomous or automatically remotely. Sorry, that's what's called remote controlled howitzer 155. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's 2 crew members, right?
Yeah.
The basically what's going automatically is like the loading of the shells. So you don't have anyone sitting in that artillery module at the back, like one would sit in a self-propelled artillery gun or in a towered artillery or whatever, where you would manually load the shell or place the shell inside the loader and then it gets loaded. So everything from the propellant charges from the shells, everything gets loaded automatically. So it's actually yeah, it goes faster. You don't need as much personnel, and in the future, it's planned, not achieved right now, but it's planned that they're actually doing everything autonomous and remotely.
And this is fantastic. There are 54 of those, which is a significant amount for something that is brand new, cutting edge. Of course, though, with something like this, the lead time is fairly distant, as in they're not due to get these. What, 2025? Are they going to get any in 25?
Yeah, so the plan is to deliver either the first one at the end of 2024, and I don't mean
Oh,
November,
wow.
it's literally like the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025. There were some misleading statements somewhere at the end, somewhere at the beginning of 2025. But in all cases, the beginning of 2025. Yes, production already takes place since multiple months, as far as I know, and training should actually also now take place.
Yeah, and actually, do you know, I'm going to give props to Germany. Like, often Germany gets slagged off because of Taurus, and all people think about Taurus because that's all that is mentioned in the news quite often, mainstream media. But actually, if it wasn't, Germany are doing so much for Ukraine. It is brilliant. In a sense, it is the US and Germany are your two big providers, as in serious providers. Because just at the pledge, so we're not talking about what's already gone. Just look at this equipment. So we've got 6 Western Sea Kings still to go. You've got 12 Panzerhowitzer 2000s, at the moment, one of the better self-propelled howitzers in the world. 18 Panzerhowitzer 2000s as well. So that's like 30. Now, it's not that Germany is necessarily going to be funding all of these. I guess is there a
We are.
difference? Well, everything you've got here is what you're funding.
Yeah, we are. We have pledged the first 12 Panzerhaubitze 2000s. So in the list of the German government, there the latest 18 aren't included. So I should say that that's why I listed them separately with separate sources.
But for all of this list, is this German funded as well as manufactured?
Yes.
This is German funded.
Yes. So sometimes, for example, the Susanna 2
Yeah.
Cypherbird artillery, some other countries are co-financing this. So it's Denmark and Norway, very correctly. I believe the whole contract for 16 howitzers was like 92 million, and all three countries share the burden in the same value. And yeah, sorry, what was the question?
Well, it's just it wasn't a question. I'm waxing lyrical. I'm waxing lyrical about how important Germany is here. So 54 RCH 155s. Okay, a couple of years down the line. 14 Susanna 2, very capable self-propelled howitzers from Slovakia that you're co-financing. 25 Leopard 1A5s will be upgraded with no doubt with decent enough fire control systems and so on and so forth. Another 19 Leopard 2A4s. Main battle tank, very capable tanks, obviously. 20 Marder 1A3 infantry fighting vehicles, 300 FFG mine resistance ambush protection vehicles, 78 further FFG MRAPs, and Berger Panzer ARVs. And you just heard today, I reported just recently that there are a whole load more Berger Panzer 2s that are just being ordered as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, so first of all, so nobody gets confused, the 19 Leopard 2A4s, Germany is financing the maintenance of the latest Spanish pledged Leopard 2A4s. So it's 19 million in total from Germany, and they fund the maintenance and overhaul with 1 million per tank, just for information to make that clear.
Yeah.
With the Berger Panzer 2, if I recall correctly, you quoted my tweet from yesterday, right? With the mine clearing tanks. The 21. Yeah.
I just had it. Here it is. Yeah. So this,
Yeah.
I've just showed this on my video, but yeah, which isn't out, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so you've got 21 Berger Panzer 2 ARVs from Bundeswehr stocks, and then a bunch of they've already delivered 52. So these are looking like these are Leopard 1s that are going to be changed from Berger Panzers to mine clearing tanks. Is that correct?
Yes. So the plan is, of course, the plan needs to go through, right? So right now we should take everything with a grain of salt. But the plan is to deliver these Berger Panzer 2, so the armored recovery vehicles, to the industry, to FFG. and FFG then places them with Pearson Engineering. Is a British company, isn't it?
Which one,
I'm
sorry?
sure they're British. Pearson Engineering. They are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're a British company, and they are delivering the root opening mine plows for these vehicles to FFG. FFG places them on them, and then you basically have a mine clearing tank with recovery vehicles capabilities.
Yeah, it looks like they are British.
Yep.
I think you could be right there. Yes. Anyway, yeah. So just an incredible amount of kit, and then that just all of this kit here that is still to go out, like hundreds of transport vehicles, Oshkosh, Pioneer Panzer, DAX. Engineering vehicles, amphibious bridging vehicles, refrigerator trucks, roll-off container, just hundreds and hundreds of bits of kit. Man-portable anti-tank weapons, 12,944 of them. I mean, gee whiz, 2 TRML-4D radars. Those are really significant radar pieces of kit, so on and so forth. All of this artillery ammunition still to come. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of pieces of firearms ammunition, and so on and so forth. Just and IRIS-T missiles. Just there is so much kit still to go from Germany to Ukraine. This makes me feel like a little bit confident that Ukraine are in at least fairly good hands at the moment. Yeah, we can talk about getting stuff out there sooner and quicker, but there is stuff that it's not just like, right, it's all gone, it's over. We've got to now get more equipment sorted out and pledged. There's an awful lot of pledged equipment from all countries, not just Germany, that is still to get out to Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you just phrased this with this all this kit is still coming from Germany. I immediately had to remind myself and think back to the time when people started realizing, or there were media reports about Germany not pledging additional funds for the next years, and they tried everything with all that kind of stuff, so we couldn't make new announcements for the next years. But even when we just look at what is already pledged, it feels like Germany would still ahead of most of other countries. Not all, of course, but most of all other countries when we just deliver everything which is pledged as of right now.
Yeah, and of course there are caveats to apply to when we talk about numbers, and like I always say, like Denmark and nations like that are providing as a percentage of GDP phenomenal amounts of help to Ukraine. But in terms of real, this is where you look at the US and say, without the US, Ukraine would be screwed. But as a percentage of GDP, the US isn't actually providing all that much. I mean, it sounds a bit controversial, but at one stage they were like 31st on the list. I don't know where they are now. They're a bit further up because of that $60 billion pledge. But as a percentage of GDP and then per capita, actually they scored down the list. And the same can be said about Germany, right? It's a big economy, a fairly big population, so you will be further down the list compared to Denmark, the Baltic nations, probably Norway as well. But in real terms, Ukraine wouldn't be able to succeed at all, wouldn't be able to be where they are right now without the help of the US predominantly, and then Germany. So it depends how you slice and dice the data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a very interesting thought to actually think about, right? Because I think both are correct. Like at once saying, okay, GDP matters. It definitely does. Like when Germany would or the US would do the same amount or would provide the same amount of assistance, like Denmark or Estonia or whatever, do it per capita, right? Then of course the assistance would be much, much greater, and Ukraine would be right now in a much better position. Not denying that. On the other hand, I don't know. I don't want to insult someone, but the amount, for example, Estonia or Lithuania has given since the start of the full-scale invasion, so in the latest 2.5 years, Germany sometimes puts together that in just one single aid package.
Yeah, exactly. And both are correct, and that's the right way of saying it. So Estonia there like barely features on the aid because Estonia is a tiny country. What they're giving, it's like basically Germany and the US are like billionaires coming along and giving a homeless person $1 million, right? And that's going to be super important. Estonia is like someone who's not very rich coming along, and they've only got $10,000 to their name and giving $1,000, right? Which is like really meaningful as a percentage of what they've got, but it's not isn't $1,000 isn't $1,000,000, right? So that's the analogy I often use, and you can see that here where the US is way out in front as an individual country. Of course, the EU, when you add on like the countries within the EU, surpasses the US, and this is part of the problem. People like Trump giving out disinformation, but the US and then Germany are the two biggest providers at the moment. And by the way, Germany, you need to add on, so say, a quarter of the EU funding onto Germany as well, if you want to properly understand Germany. Is that about right?
Yeah, so the EPF, for example, the European Peace Facility, decides between two factors: one lethal aid and one non-lethal aid. Non-lethal aid, and both factors have different percentages which countries give. I believe for non-lethal aid, it's Germany with 25.7%, and with lethal aid, it's 26.3%. Of what you see from and that's of course the EPF aid, so everything which was given via the European Peace Facility. So for example, sometimes they finance assistance directly for Ukraine. Sometimes the funds from the EPF gets used to reimburse, is the correct word in English, right? Like give these countries money back for systems they have delivered to Ukraine. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so and then when you look over in this one, this is a percentage of GDP. You got Denmark, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Finland, Sweden, Poland, Slovakia. Interesting that Slovakia there, and that's probably from the beginning of the war rather than to more recently. Netherlands, Czech Republic, Croatia. Interesting, Croatia there. Belgium, even they often get a bit of a hard time, but actually, as a percentage of GDP, Belgium are doing better than, say, the UK and certainly the US. So the US is now down here. I don't know what position that is, but it's probably about 20th now, something like that, 15th, 20th. But again, neither of the, that's a correct way of looking at it in one sense, and as in real terms, this is a correct way too. There's no single correct way. It's just we need to understand that it's not really a competition, or it shouldn't be. It should be like everyone needs to be giving as much as they can, but there are certainly some countries that are featuring lower down on both scales here, and I would assume something like I wonder where Spain fit, because I often think Spain and Portugal maybe. Actually, Spain are ahead of the US in terms of percent of GDP, but you get the point.
Absolutely. And another country would probably the one you are talking about later this week with Daniela and Erland, right?
Yes, I want to. Hopefully, we're going to find a time. Yeah, Italy. Yes. So I wonder where they are. Well, they're above the US in terms of percentage of GDP. And interesting here that as a share of EU aid, it's in the light blue. So actually, Italy, most of their aid is as a part of the EU funding. In terms of bilateral help, actually relatively little. And there's a country with a fairly sizable army, if I'm correct.
Well, I'm not sure about Italy's army, but just in pure terms of GDP and what they are capable of, if they want to, they should do way more. I mean, everyone should. The same goes for Germany, of course.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we go just to dwell for just a last bit on the real terms. You've got Germany over here, as you've got your key EU members of Germany, France, and Italy, essentially, without the UK in there at the moment. So you've got Germany there, and then of course you're going to be adding on the EU funding as well to what they've given. And then France is back down here, but had got off to a very slow start, but it's been doing a little bit better. And Italy further back here, and that's considerably less than France even, and vastly less than Germany. So Germany really are doing an awful lot more than I think people give them credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's just take the artillery systems, for example, because you mentioned them earlier. Like Germany is still giving artillery systems worth hundreds and hundreds of millions. So, for example, the 18 RCH 155 alone are 216 million euros worth. And so
Wow.
when you add everything up, then you can add the Panzerhaubitze, from which, for example, the 12 we are now financing from Qatar. We're paying 150 million for them. And then the Slovakian ones. And when you all add this up, there are so many very, very expensive artillery systems coming from Germany, and we are just part of the artillery capability coalition. And then on the other hand, I don't want to bitch about France. I'm very sorry about the French viewers. But then
No, you're not.
was it last week or was it no? It was last week, right? With the where Ukraine had to buy their Caesar howitzers from France, and they just cost a fraction of what the Panzerhaubitze or the RCH 145 cost, and France is leading the artillery capability coalition. And then goes on for so many countries, and that's what I'm really, really frustrated about.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I think France was doing so well, and then the European elections came along, and that's just ruined everything. And then he called it Emmanuel Macron. They got done in the European elections. Rassemblement National did really well, and then he called a snap election, and that was all a bit of a disaster. And then he had the Olympics, and we're just waiting for Emmanuel Macron to like turn back up, because he was doing much better at putting Ukraine at the forefront. And then all of that happened, and it's just been, where's France been since then? So it's a real shame. In terms of equipment here that is due to come, you said Skynex you were pretty excited about. Anything else that's really worthy of note that you think is super important? Obviously all of it is.
Yeah, obviously all of it is. But no, I would say the remote controlled howitzers, because I don't think just about Ukraine, but also about other countries or the German defense industry in general. You see this, for example, with IRIS-T SLM. It's doing so amazing in Ukraine that it's basically it became, with the European Sky Shield initiative initiated by Germany, it became one of the probably the best or the most optimistic armaments produced in Germany, right? It's getting exported and bought by so many countries. Just today or yesterday, Bulgaria, for example, signed an agreement to buy IRIS-T SLM as part of this initiative. And this is also what I'm seeing for the remote controlled howitzers. I mean, you said it yourself, Great Britain is acquiring them, right? And I think Switzerland is considering them. I believe the US is considering them to be replacements for some things. Of course, the German army is buying them. And to see them in action in Ukraine, first, of course, because it's a very capable artillery system, and I really wanted to see succeed in Ukraine because it could be a great benefit for the Ukrainian army, but also for exports afterwards. And apart from that, of course, also the Skynex systems and all the IRIS-T systems, IRIS-T SLM, and of course the IRIS-T SLS launchers, because air defense, I mean, Scholz talks about it every time, right? Air defense, air defense, air defense. Doesn't mean anything, but it's very, very worth.
So what I'm unaware of any evaluation of how well the IRIS-T has done. Can you just tell us, how much do you know about what its capabilities are, and what it can shoot down, where you would use it, how you would use it, and whether we know it's been successful?
So, in terms of capabilities, I think I might be wrong in saying it can shoot down everything besides small FPV drones, of course, because I doubt the radar can actually track this, and the missile can actually, you know what I mean. And the manufacturer stated that this system could also intercept short-range ballistic missiles.
Really?
If I recall correctly, they said also short-range ballistic missiles. But from my conversations with John and with Colby, I think all agree that this is not true. I'm not sure about that, but apart from that, they can intercept basically everything.
Really, that's really good news. And do you know what the range is? I mean, we can look up here.
40 kilometers should be the range.
40 kilometers. So that is your kind of medium range. Yeah. So here you got SLS, so short range, 12 kilometers, SLM, 40 kilometers, and SLX, I didn't know about that, and high def. 80 and 100, but I don't know that that's anything to do with Ukraine. But yeah,
That's
40
future
kilometers.
talks. The
Yeah.
SLX and it's future talks. So it's not
Yeah.
relevant for Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
And in terms of capabilities, just to give some numbers, in June, I believe the CEO of Deer Defense, the company which produces the air defense system, gave an interview to was it? I guess it was Hardpunkt, like a German media, and there he stated that they have successfully intercepted around 240 targets in
Wow.
Ukraine, and that was in June.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, the successful interception rate is about like 95%. I think that's it's a very decent.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Benny Pye said France is something like the second biggest exporter of military equipment in the world. I think I read. That's absolutely true. They were the third. It was Russia, but they have now dropped. I can't imagine Russia to even be in the top 10 anymore, personally. Yeah, so France are a massive arms exporter, which means they have a huge potential to help. But yeah, Germany seems to have been coming to the forefront a lot. I know Rheinmetall gets mentioned an awful lot, but they're far from the only people operate the only defense military concern in Germany operating. What are the other big defense manufacturers?
Well, Rheinmetall, Deer Defense, Hensoldt. In terms
Yeah.
of Ukraine, I would absolutely say Quantum Systems. It's a comparably to Rheinmetall, it's a small company, but they're doing very, very valuable work. And they opened their centers in Ukraine earlier than Rheinmetall did. Just one example, they are producing the Vector drones, these high quality surveillance drones and reconnaissance drones. Germany is delivering to Ukraine since 2022. And so I think these are the most important companies for Ukraine from Germany right now. So Rheinmetall, Deer Defense, Hensoldt, and Quantum Systems.
Yeah, so that's commissioned the strategic industries or former strategic industries minister with the top knot with the Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck, the drone factory opening for quantum systems in Ukraine. You mentioned Hensoldt. One of the things Hensoldt do, they do that that radar, don't they? That we mentioned, which is incredibly important. Is it TRMD? 4D something.
Exactly. So that's the radar, which is part of the IRIS-T SLM air defense system. And they also produce, for example, the AMPS, the set protection systems for the helicopters. Germany.
That's what I was. That was my next thing. Yeah. So the helicopter defense system that allows it to automatically send off things to defend against incoming sort of missiles and whatnot to the helicopter. Although there are different configurations, they can have like laser and so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, that's sort of stuff that Hensoldt do. That's what I was trying to look for. That's the radar system that Hensoldt produced that the Germans have provided a lot of. Can these sort of things be plug and play into existing systems, not just for one particular type of missile launcher?
Do you mean like plug and play for other air defense systems as well? As far as I know, they can share, of course, the data. So the Ukrainians can share the data acquired by these radars. But honestly, I'm not that of a technical person. I have some people to go through to ask some stuff when I need something for my articles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't want to talk bullshit now to your audience.
So anything else that the Germans are doing at the moment? Is there any kind of before we get onto that, can you re-explain to my audience? I've explained it before, but there are still some people saying, and I've seen in my threads that Germany's halving the amount of aid that they're giving to Ukraine next year. Can you explain that? Maybe put that issue to bed.
Okay, so the situation is basically, I'm not sure how is it going in other countries, but in Germany, it's that the current government is deciding on a draft budget for the next year, right? So it's a draft budget. It gets approved by the government, by all the ministers and stuff like this, and then it gets sent to the parliament. The draft budget for this year so the one which was made in 2023 was already 4 billion. The one for next year, which was made this year, is also 4 billion. So it's basically the same amount the draft budget had included as last year. The parliament, however, can look over the draft budget and can add or remove funds from this. So last year, for example, they said, hey, that's not enough funding for Ukraine. And they added about 3 billion more in assistance, which Germany could draw from. So that's why we now had around 7.1 billion. And now, of course, another 397 billion, which was agreed like 2 weeks ago. For this year. And that's why people think with the draft budget that Germany is halving the amount. The plan is definitely from the government to have that draft budget, 4 billion out of our own pockets, and additional assistance gets paid mostly via EU schemes like the G7 funds, for example. I'm sure you talked about them during your streams. The 50 billion
50 billion, yeah.
yeah, financed by the frozen Russian assets. That's the plan. And that's why people say, and in my opinion, rightfully right now say that Germany would halve its assistance. It's still the same amount in the draft budget as last year, but in practically, when it would get agreed on, like it is right now, it would be from like 8 billion to or 7.6, something along the lines like this, to 4 billion for next year in military assistance. However, the draft budget get only agreed in around November. So right now, of course, it's just 4 billion fix. So definitely 4 billion. And that's still, I think, more than France and Great Britain are doing next year. So it's already more than them. And it could well be that in a couple of weeks we hear news that Germany will not do 4 billion, but I don't know, 8 billion or 9 billion or 10 billion. Don't want to get your hopes too high, but it's a draft budget. Things could change.
Just before I go on to the next question, just what I was talking about with regard to plug and play. This is a great image that I've shown a number of times before. And actually, as far as I understand it, the US has given their first version of this to Ukraine. And it's got loads of letters, AIMDSO, but it's something like, it's even longer than that. I forget what, maybe Colby Budwell's got it up here. IAMDIBCS. Lots of letters there, but anyway, the idea is that you have this whole network, and this works better for NATO equipment, but they've also managed to adapt things like the old book launchers, the Soviet era stuff, to be able to work with this system, which is an overall command system that acquires, you have all the radars plugged into this, acquires the targets, and then you can work out what target it is and what the best thing to take it out of the sky will be. And this is what it looks like as a kind of infographic. You get things like Link 16 that then plugs into that, which is where you have radar planes like the Hawkeye, the A-50, and so on and so forth, that give that sense of what's in the sky. And you can have your F-16 plug into the Link 16, so that even though the F-16's radar isn't very expansive, it can access other people's radars to be able to plug it into its plane, so you can target something that your own plane on its own wouldn't be able to see, so on and so forth. The point is that there's this whole system of stuff that is arguably, or I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on, but in principle, everything in Ukraine is able to work off the same kind of system in a way that the Russians are unable to do that. At least in principle, that's what is going on. I probably butchered the explanation there. I don't know if you got anything to add to that.
No, I just want to say I couldn't explain it any better. So yeah, I of course saw the image multiple times, and I'm sure I heard Colby or John talk multiple times about it. But honestly, that's, like I said, I'm not a technical person.
Yeah,
I'm not really
likewise
interested into the technical details of all that kind of stuff. And so yeah,
Yeah.
can't really talk about that.
But I mean, the important point here for Germany is they are providing things that can plug into that. So sometimes we think of like whole Patriot systems and like, oh my God, they need a whole system. But quite often you just need bits and pieces. It just helps even to get bits and pieces because you can plug them into potentially into the existing framework. With regard to Germany, anything with regard to Patriots that we need to know? What was the latest with regard to Patriots, especially since Germany was starting that initiative to try and get as much air defense assistance as possible?
Yeah, so the Immediate Action Air Defense Initiative, right?
Yeah.
The EAD.
Yeah.
I believe the latest Patriot news we had were the delivery of 100 missiles from German stocks. The reprocurement of these missiles, so basically Germany buys these missiles back from US manufacturers to replenish their stocks. These were co-financed by the Netherlands, Norway, and Denmark, if I recall correctly. And that was I believe, the latest news from Germany. And I don't think you will hear anything new about that or anything new related to Patriot in the new time or in the next months. Don't forget, we have already delivered 3 whole fire units. We had delivered a spare radar, 2 additional launchers. We have delivered hundreds of missiles to Ukraine, and we are still waiting for even the mightiest replenishment. Like, haven't received a single launcher or anything else.
Yes, if I could actually type. Patriot, yeah, so here we are, the Patriots that you've got listed on what's already been given there at the top. An awful lot. That is more than any other country in terms of Patriots. It's really interesting what you just said, though, about how I love it how these nations are working together, allied nations are working together. So Germany says, right, we've got more Patriot missiles than most other countries in stock. So here's 100 missiles. And then what, 4 countries, 3 other countries in Germany, is that right? Get together and say, we're going to buy missiles back for Germany. And because it's, of course, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. You've got like, we need to spend money to help Ukraine. So however that gets done, it's all for Ukraine. So yes, Germany gives these and we'll buy the stuff for Germany. And it's all the same, the outcome is the same. And I just think that's really good.
Yeah, for me, it's really interesting that apparently these countries, I would exclude Germany because we have plenty of deals together with Denmark and the Netherlands. But apart from that, it's interesting that most of these countries can't really work together outside such initiatives, apparently. Like, when you think about the fact that so many nations have pledged assistance via the German initiative, like Lithuania, for example, has pledged to buy 6 Ember 1800 air surveillance radars, which gets delivered, I believe, next year in 2026. We have France, we have Romania, we have the US, Belgium. We have so many countries who have pledged military assistance via this initiative, and also other countries which pledge to donate funds, like Norway, like Belgium also, and all that kind of stuff to buy stuff for Ukraine. And it's interesting that these countries apparently were not willing to do it by themselves without such an initiative. At least that comes across to me. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's the same for the SEC ammunition initiative with artillery ammunition. Of course, these are different sources, but the money was apparently there, and the money was apparently not used to finance Ukraine aid, apart from that initiative. So when this initiative would not be there, would they have used this money for other purposes or not? That's a big question.
Yeah, and I think goes to show the importance of these coalitions and just people getting together. There's I wrote about this in one of my books where you kind of morally abrogate yourself in groups of people. So there's a big group of people. You end up de-individualizing, and I could go down a real rabbit hole here, but the idea is that if you get people together and coordinate, then it's much more likely to bring about effective allied partnerships where it's just waiting for someone to say, right, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, let's work together. And so bringing together all these coalitions of countries in different domains, like as you mentioned, the air defense, and then you got the drone coalition, I think is just really important to benefit not only Ukraine massively, of course, but actually all of those coalition countries that are going to be learning from other countries, taking that back to their own industries, supporting their own industries by stimulating the economy, etc., etc. And it's this positive sum game where Ukraine is definitely benefiting, but there are also benefits for those in the coalitions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Great example, by the way, of the capability coalitions. It's, I mean, how many do we have right now? 7, 8,
Yeah,
something like
maybe
this.
even
Yeah,
more now. Yeah.
like IT, maritime, artillery, armored, of course, like the tanks. Did I say already? Artillery, air defense. So many capability coalitions, and the countries which are mostly providing the most aid in these domains are leading these capability coalitions. And for example, in terms of air defense, it's not only giving systems to Ukraine, but it's actually very much planned through or scheduled. I don't know how to say it correctly in English. How one does it. So, for example, one country takes over the training part and organizes this. The other country is organizing all the deliveries to Ukraine. Another country is doing the bureaucratic work, for example. So, for example, in the air defense capability coalition, one part is taken by Germany, another one by France, another one by the US. And this goes for all capability coalitions, right? And it's not only about giving systems to Ukraine, but also modernizing the Ukrainian stocks that way that they're in the future operable with other NATO countries and can be implemented into NATO. That's one step, one big step, in my opinion, to Ukraine's NATO membership.
Yeah, that's
And
really so.
yeah,
The word is interoperability there, where
yeah,
you are able to operate to the specifications of NATO with the right NATO equipment, and if these coalition partners are aiding Ukraine with that equipment, then actually you are expediting, you are making Ukraine's accession to NATO quicker, just as a byproduct of doing this as well. Yeah, it's a really good point.
yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, right now, when Russia would end the war right now, would Ukraine be the second or the third strongest NATO country in the world? I assume so.
Yeah,
They're definitely stronger than Germany or the UK or Italy or so. Maybe Turkey ahead of them, maybe? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at it, how you um, evaluate that. But there's certainly the MacGyver of for those who don't know, MacGyver is the old TV program where he made like weapons out of all sorts of bits and pieces. Like they can operate pretty much anything, and there's a lot of innovation going on. So that yeah, they are going to be training NATO. I think themselves before long, and they probably are already. I mean, although we provide like Operation Interflex in the UK, where we're providing training for them, there's an element of like, well, actually, this is what we have learned already, and this is how to combat drones and the front line in a way that we won't know how to do because we've just not experienced it. So, yeah, there's a lot to helping Ukraine. It's a lot about improving our own systems as well, like the feedback we get from providing or not just providing equipment, but being involved in developing new equipment with just the feedback loop of having testing this equipment in Ukraine, getting back the information, and then providing an updated version. And then, of course, that is allowing us to buy that kit for our own country. So Germany must be learning so much from what they're doing so that their own armed forces are able to access that knowledge and that equipment to improve.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can only talk about Germany, but I'm sure that goes also for other countries. I
Hmm.
mean, with Germany, with every country, I believe it's about drones, right? Ukraine is probably the most advanced country out there, along with Russia, when it comes to loitering ammunition, drones, and all that kind of stuff. And like everyone, even the US, can learn from Ukraine how they're doing, how they're scaling, and how they're operating these drone teams and stuff like this. And I know, for example, when it comes to Germany, we have this drone research group, to say it very undetailed. And it just compares in my mind that we have Stephen Hawking on one side, that's Ukraine with all the groups, and then we have like the what's it called in English? In German, it's Neanderthaler, like the old
Neanderthal.
humans. Yeah, that's Germany with drones, basically, and that just blows my mind every time.
So yesterday we heard that the UK is giving £3.5 billion, $4.6 billion or something like that worth of equipment to, or money to Ukraine to spend on equipment, but they have to spend that in the UK, which is, how you stimulate your own economy. And I often talk about this being okay. One of the arguments for supporting Ukraine is that actually a lot of that money gets spent within your own economy. Same for that, massive aid package from the US. Much of that, people saying maybe 70% of that is spent inside the US. Now with Germany and all the equipment that you've given to Ukraine, have we heard much about the effect that's had on the German economy? Is there any data at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think there's really good data, like how it affected our own economy, but it sure didn't like hurt the economy. Of course, Germany, like I think most countries, invests most of the funding into their own economy, into their own companies. Of course, we also buy from outside, like we buy in Slovakia, in Bulgaria, in Denmark, in Estonia. So we're buying in many different countries armaments for Ukraine, or I finance them there. But I mean, just think about, yeah, it's billions and billions and billions, and most of the money is invested into the own economy. It surely has helped a lot. And I just think about the Iris TSLM again. I said it before. We are the European Sky Initiative, Sky Sheet Initiative. It's now 8-9 countries, whatever, who said, okay, we're buying Iris TSLM because we see how good the system is in Ukraine. And it's not only about what you invest in your own economy with Ukraine aid, but also what your aid could achieve for your economy inside Ukraine. And Iris TSLM, in my opinion, is a perfect example.
Yeah. So even if you are spending money on procuring some Susanna 2 self-propelled howitzers from Slovakia, right? That actually, so there is a bit of money going out from Germany into another nation. You're getting so many orders for your own. A lot of this is about marketing and advertising equipment. So your Iris T, as mentioned, like HIMARS for the US, the orders are coming in thick and fast for this kit. So for every one Susanna howitzer that you are funding abroad, actually you're receiving inward investment from other countries that's double that or whatever. The Germany is, and I'm not trying to sell the whole kind of supporting Ukraine as an economic decision or as some kind of cynical financial ploy for the military industrial complex, but the reality of war is you need people to make this stuff, and if you are going to support Ukraine, it also helps if there's an economic argument to be made for it as well.
Absolutely. And it's really frustrating for me, and I'm sure it's frustrating for many, many people when people say, hey, we need to invest this money in different things like schools or whatever. And of course, investments in these kind of areas are also needed. But isn't like this money would hurt us or this money would go away and didn't help our own economy? It just helps different purposes.
Yeah, and like this, I would claim that is a false dichotomy. So a false dichotomy is where you say it's either this or it's that, and it's like, no, like we can stimulate the economy through defense initiatives and fund schools, and even we can fund schools maybe from some of the profits and taxes we get off of this stimulation and activity to fund the schools. So it's not like, well, we can either spend this or this. It's no, we can do both actually. So yeah, it's a really important point. just a few thanks, if you don't mind, GAU. Thank you, Kevin Forst. Really appreciate your support. 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. He's always so kind with that. Finnish guy says, hi, legendary team, or hell, King Jonathan. I wouldn't advocate any kind of monarchistic talk like that necessarily. But although I will accept Legend of the Multiverse, that's for sure. BTC Bandit, thank you so much for your super sticker. Some people who don't know what I'm talking about with the Legend of the Multiverse are thinking, what is he banging on about? Johnny Christensen, some Danish love there, always appreciated. Thank you, my man. And Tom NPS, thanks. Ukraine will become like South Korea, maybe. I hate this damn war. I don't know what you mean by South Korea, whether you mean a demilitarized zone or in terms of being this prominent manufacturer of munitions, because it is on, or has been for so many decades, on the brink of war. South Korea is one of these nations that has a very vibrant defense industry that has become more and more prevalent. It's, I think, 8th at the moment in the world now, or whereas it was well out the top 10. And it could be that Ukraine is going to be something like that. I don't know if that's what Tom means. Anyway, so is there anything else you want to tell us about your website and whatnot?
Yeah, so when you would bring up the website again, please.
Yep.
Like I said, military assistance, of course, the most important stuff. So I put it on the main page, but it actually has other features. So when you go on top, you have also an overview about the German Ringtausch program. You have an overview about the Medivac, so the medical evacuations in Ukraine. You have an overview about the bilateral assistance. So there's more stuff going on.
So, wow, this is interesting. Medevac patients in Europe. So Germany has been interesting. The conversation we were just having about stimulating your own economy with regard to investing in your own defense industry. I made this point a couple of weeks back when Germany said that they were going to take more patients on from Ukraine and rehabilitate them inside Germany. And I said, this is exactly the same as the economic argument for the defense military industrial complex. Is just, instead of the MIC, you can put in the healthcare industry. So this is a stimulation for the healthcare industry, where they say, right, we're going to take 1,000 patients from Ukraine. We're going to help Ukraine out by rehabilitating them in Germany, but actually what we're doing is we're stimulating the healthcare industry in Germany. And actually you can see that they've done that massively. Talk to us a little bit about what Germany's been doing.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say not only stimulating the healthcare industry, but also what I think most of the people don't think about, the doctors and all the medical stuff is gaining so much experience because they treat wounds and infections and all that kind of stuff they probably have never seen before. Like many of the people coming from Ukraine probably have wounds like amputations from, I don't know, explosions, or they're having gunshot wounds and stuff like this. And you don't see that often here in Germany. Like, you know what I mean? So they're also gaining a lot of experience. And I think that's also very, very valuable in terms of civil defense.
Yeah, because you can then export that experience again. I mean, I don't want to see everything so cynically, but at the end of the day, why is it a benefit to have that experience is a question. And of course, then you say, well, then they can treat our own population better in the event of those kind of injuries, but also we can export that expertise, or we can continue taking people in from around the world. We've built up this expertise. We then become world leaders in this particular niche part of war wounds, or this particular area of prosthetics rehabilitation. So I don't know. I'm just spitballing, thinking out loud.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. No, but it's not exactly like that, or I'm not thinking about that exactly like you phrased it, but it's basically the same. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of civil defense, like these type of wounds we see on a daily basis in Ukraine. Many German doctors haven't seen that in their lifetime, right? And to gain that experience is probably a very, I don't want to say satisfying experience. It comes out the wrong way, but I know you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very valuable. Yeah. And about this overview, Like I said, Medivac patients. So basically, Germany has taken in by far the most in all of Europe. Just for information, this is data provided by the EU. So the Great Britain, for example, is not
Yeah.
included.
Where are we? God
And
damn it.
yeah, the problem is I could have taken in other sources, but then we have the problem, hey, the EU is updating its data like once a month, and then the UK updates its data like once a quarter or something like this. And what I do
Yeah.
now, like other countries are looking so much better than the UK. That's why I'm leaving them out, right? It's just unfair to other countries.
Oh
And
dear.
yeah, what we have basically been doing is taking in Ukrainian patients until I believe July or June 2022. The Luftwaffe, so the German Air Force, basically flew out patients themselves from Poland. Since then, Norway is actually taking over this part for most of the EU countries. So I want to also much appreciation for Norway, because without them, most of the stuff you see there wouldn't be possible at all, because they flew out these patients from Poland and flew them to, or fly them to other countries so they can treat them. And yeah, we've done that with over 1,100 patients. And yeah, so that's a European overview. On the bottom is a just German overview. So you see basically update per update how many new patients come on top, and then the total volume, all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in that. So that's the Medivac overview. Another overview would be the Ringtausch program. So basically where Germany is delivering assistance most of the time to a third country, which is modern and new assistance. And this other country, the third country, is giving all the assistance to Ukraine, which most of the time doesn't require additional training, and Ukraine can use it right away. And that's a big benefit of this initiative.
Mm.
This was very, very big in 2022.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're still doing this, for example, with Sekia. We've just concluded a new one, but it's very, very rare these days.
Yeah, good stuff. So that's another part of that, and then obviously the blog and those, as mentioned, those previous articles, bilateral assistance.
Yes.
This is, are these just different downloadable government documents of as to what Germany has declared that they're giving to Ukraine?
Exactly. So the government puts together a list every couple of months, and there they have. When you open the detailed view, please, just
Whereabouts?
just click
Oh
on the
yeah,
detailed view. Yeah, exactly. So they
Oh
are
wow.
declaring, hey, this ministry has given so much assistance, and in their oldest versions, they've also declared on what they have given the assistance. So it's listed, hey, this ministry has given 1 billion, and this is detailed as
This is
50 million
incredible,
for this.
and it shows how transparent the Germans are. I know you've said before that many countries are different in the way that they approach supporting Ukraine in the war. So, for example, Finland will give assistance packages sizable for the size of the country they are, but they won't tell you what they're giving. Whereas Germany goes the other way and says, well, and France don't even tell you they're necessarily giving stuff either. So that you got on the one hand really secretive, then you got your medium secretive, and then you got Germany is like, we're going to tell you everything we're doing, and we're going to lay it out here, and you can see it on government websites, and then you are synthesizing all that information here.
Yeah, so basically I'm gaining the information, process them, and make them available for the English audience. Because
Amazing.
what it's very, very disappointing for me is that or good for me because it helps my website, of course, is that these lists are really just a PDF list which you need to download, and it's only available in German.
Yeah. So that really important stuff. Great information that you're doing here. Obviously, you can support Germinate to Ukraine with Buy Me a Coffee or Kofi. So that I would suggest doing that. The work he's doing is absolutely brilliant. Are there any other nuggets that you want to let us know about? Any other bits of
Sorry, I
information?
was still muted. I was talking already. I was still muted. No, there's nothing really more going on the website. I will in the future work on a new feature, which is a lost database, a detailed one. You basically have
Right.
the I'm sure you already know this, and also others the loss list from Oryx, right, which
Yeah.
still gets updated by Jakob and some other volunteers.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same, just for German systems and with much, much more. So you have all the footage there, and you have also geolocations for most of the losses. So I'm sure this is maybe not interesting for a lot of casual viewers, stuff like this, but sure is interesting for researchers and journalists and all that kind of stuff. And that's also a main group what I'm trying to, or which I try to get via my website, actually, that it becomes a main resource for journalists and all that kind of stuff which are writing about German aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've hung out at Oryx, actually, because actually I find that Andrew Perpetua's loss lists on a daily basis are just really nice to look at and useful. So, but yeah, Oryx is still a really important part of documenting. Each of these are hyperlinked, the evidence of each of these things, and that cuts down on double counting, etc., etc. So yeah, you can go and check what the Russians and the Ukrainians have lost with regard to each of their. I mean, just now, I remember looking at this at the beginning of the war, and it was quite a manageable page. But now, look at all that. This is just for the BMP ones. Ooh, just the data there is phenomenal. But yeah, just doing a really good job, and obviously synthesizing that into your website would be that'd be interesting as well. So good stuff. Are there any? Oh, by the way, we are Benny Pie. Reminded me that he has created this website for me, which is my ATP distilled website, and that uses artificial intelligence to summarize all of my videos. And then there's also lots of other information using artificial intelligence to do the IS Institute for the Study of War daily report and summarize that into even shorter nuggets. We are going to put, or he is going to put, a link to your website on ATP Geo Distilled as well. So just to let you know that.
No, thank you very much.
No problem at all. And please check out ATP Distilled, guys. It's always linked to in my descriptions, and obviously check out German Aid to Ukraine. Final thing to talk about. Let's just quickly dwell on politics. That's really nice, by the way. Sorry to say this, but Chris J, Benny Pie's distilled site is brilliant work. Thank you for that, and Ben will appreciate that because he worked so hard on it. So thank you on behalf of Ben as well. So we have had an interesting time politically in Germany, and we'll kind of finish our chat talking about the politics going on there. So in the same way that France had an issue with Rassemblement National and Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella coming to the fore in the European elections and then the French snap elections, we've had European elections seeing AfD, the German equivalent, and also BSW, the left wing, firebrand left wing. So you've got the far left and the far right, who appear to be much more supportive of Russia and very much less supportive of Ukraine, becoming more powerful in elections in Thuringia and is it Saxony as well. And then we had the around Berlin, you had some regional elections there that actually the SPD, which is Olaf Scholz's party, part of a coalition, the Rainbow Coalition, holding on there and doing okay. And then people have been wondering about what's going to happen with the general elections going forward. And I believe Olaf Scholz has declared that he is going to run as head of the SPD, which is going to be interesting to see whether they can hold on to power, and what happens with regard to the AfD and the BSW gaining more and more influence. How do you see the lay of the land at the moment in German politics? Are you worried that support for Ukraine could diminish?
It depends. The overall situation is, of course, very. Let's say it's becoming increasingly difficult to deal with. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the political landscape as it is right now hasn't existed that way. The threats are not that big in my opinion. Of course, I was definitely younger, a lot younger
Mm.
back then, and a minor back then, but I was still interested in politics. So I think I can talk about a little bit about this. But it's in the latest years becoming more challenging and more difficult to deal with, definitely. And right now, I don't think anyone has to worry about that one of these parties like the AfD or the BSW, Bündnis Sarah Wagenknecht, would actually rule the country, but they're gaining more and more influence. And that's the big issue, because the more influence you gain, the more power you have to prevent certain things, to make it more difficult, and all that kind of stuff. And that, of course, is also, I mean, you see it with the with Ukraine, for example. It's a very hot topic for both the AfD and the BSW, and other parties are not throwing Ukraine under the bus, but definitely are more reluctant
Yeah.
in speaking about Ukraine when it comes about these topics, because they sometimes are dependent because of regional elections, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to an analysis over the last couple of days, that and they were saying that you need to be careful. Not you. One needs to be careful in saying that. Say, for example, the FPO won the elections in Austria, the far right party there, or the PVV won the elections in the Netherlands, because actually, when you've got proportional representation, often in these countries, you have to form coalitions. It's not one. It seems to be that there's like a hard ceiling for the far right that exists about 30%. I mean, the worry is that's 30% when it used to be like 5%, right? So there's been this huge change over the last decade, and you can talk about immigration and the EU with regards to the struggles they have with immigration, how that affects the rise of the far right. And as World War II goes into distant memory, and people die off of those eras, then we kind of forget like about the rise of the far right then. And so we're in this situation now where that proportion of the electorate has really grown, but it might kind of have this hard ceiling of 30%. But when you then have proportional representation, that means that they are getting into government in coalitions and are influencing the political discourse and are ruling to some degree. So, yeah, on the one hand, yeah, PVV didn't win the Dutch election outright. They didn't get over 50%, and FPO didn't go over 50% in Austria, and AfD won't get over 50% in Germany. But they are there, and they are a really important part of the political landscape. What are your thoughts on Olaf Scholz at the moment? How's his party doing? How his popularity? What's he doing for polling? And are they unlikely to get in next time?
I would say, as things stand right now, I mean, we still have much time, or a lot of time left until the next elections. But as things stand right now, I don't think there will be an SPD-led government the next time. As things stand right now, I would say the CDU, so the old party of Merkel, would win the elections. But like I said, it's still a lot of time until the elections. The SPD would, in my opinion, remind yourself, it's always just my personal opinion, right? I'm not speaking for everyone. So my personal opinion, I would say the SPD would definitely, 100% definitely have far, far more chances to win this election when they would drop Scholz and do what the media is talking about since like half a year now. No, maybe not a year, but half a year, something like this. That they would replace Scholz with Pistorius, our Minister of Defense, because he's the by a big gap the most influential and most popular politician in Germany. And I think, for example, of course, he doesn't do everything right. He has his flaws too. Everyone does. It's everyone is a human, right? Humans make errors, but I think he's a really, really great guy. And what I personally like about him, and I think what also other people like about him, is that he comes across as, he isn't the typical politician talking this and really not saying anything. You know what I mean? He's talking facts. You know, he's saying when he gets pissed about something, he is saying a lot of right things. I would say. And so with him as a chancellor candidate, they would have much, much greater chances. And I think we wrote about this once in the DMs, right? After the latest regional elections, that I think with him as a chancellor candidate, they could grab voters from other parties. Because for example, no, I'm disclosing it now. For example, I'm voting Green, right? But when they would go with Pistorius as a chancellor candidate, I would really, really think about not voting Green and vote SPD because of Pistorius, because I would love him to be a chancellor. Of course, just because he's a great minister of defense doesn't mean he's a great chancellor. But he was a small regional politician before he got one of the most influential and most important ministries in Germany, and he is killing it. Like, he's doing mistakes, but he is by far, in my opinion, the greatest minister of defense we had for many, many years. And I'm sure he could do the same as chancellor.
Yeah. It's interesting, and just to let people know, the Green Party in Germany is very different to, say, the Green Party in the UK, although that is adapting as it's becoming more and more popular, and certainly in the US. And Jill Stein, who is, the Green Party in Germany is an established political party and is a mainstream party that's been in coalition with different governments, and is, for example, is a very strong supporter of Ukraine. Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister, is from the Green Party. They are really in support of Ukraine and the industrialization. You would think that some of the things that they are advocating for aren't necessarily old school green policies, but it's just that it's more of a mature party in Germany that is part of the establishment far more than the Green parties are when they are smaller parties in different countries. So it's worth understanding the context of the German green political landscape there. Anyway, just want to throw that in.
Yeah, and also our vice chancellor Robert Habeck, for example, which you highlighted before with quantum systems.
Yeah.
He, for example, in 2021, before the full-scale invasion started in February 2022, he already called for weapon deliveries from Germany to Ukraine as the first big German politician, when everyone was against it because of our restrictions back at that time. And he said we need to deliver weapons to Ukraine. He said it in 2021. He didn't say it because it was necessary, because everyone wanted him to say that, because of the Russian invasion. He said it because he was he thought it was the right thing to do, and he was ahead of the time. So the Green Party is probably in Germany, I would say, from the big parties, the biggest supporter of Ukraine. And that's why I would vote for them.
Yeah, interesting. Just a couple more before we meander to the end. Suzanne Melendi, thank you so much. Gifting 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Really, really kind of you. I know that Cheryl Watley has been thankful for the membership she's received. Mitch Mazarol, who's such an amazing supporter of the channel. Thanks, matey. Thanks for the informative stream today with a great guest. As always, your efforts are appreciated. Thank you, and thank you for recognising Germinade as a great guest. Johnny Nedregard from Norway, off topic, and thank you for your support here, mate. Off topic, but would Ukraine replacing the Cyrillic alphabet to get closer to the West like Kazakhstan did be a wise move? I can't talk to that in answer to that question. Interesting question. What Ukraine have done is taken on cultural aspects of maybe the West or Europe in other ways. It's a difficult one, because on the one hand, you want to culturally keep on to your identity, and your alphabet might be part of your identity. What they have done is adopt, say, Christmas Day as being the 25th of December, rather than being the old kind of Epiphany or whatever, or 6th of January from the Orthodox Church, or I don't know if that's the right date, but there are certain things that Ukraine have done to kind of push away from the Russian world, right? And it could be that getting rid of the Cyrillic alphabet is something they consider later on. I don't know, but it's a difficult one, because you don't want to rid yourself entirely of your history and cultural identity. So there will be certain moves to push away Russia, and certain moves to adopt their own identity. And, it's a difficult one. But yeah, interesting question. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Germinade, at all.
Not really. The only thing I would say to that is that Ukraine is a very, very proud country. At least it comes to they always try to differentiate them from Russia. The language, the culture, everything needs to be separated. And I can understand why. I mean, we all can understand why. But I don't think that certain strict changes are being made to that. Because the Ukrainian language is probably one of the most influential things they try to set apart from Russia. Would you agree on that?
Yeah. So yeah, often the spoken language is so important. I mean, that is one of the big things, and it becomes this big political cultural battlefield as well, because the Russians say, oh, Russian is not allowed to be spoken in Ukraine, which is a load of nonsense. And actually the Russians in the occupied parts of Ukraine have long been penalizing Ukrainians being spoken there. So it's like this projection they do, but there's this big fight over the language and a lot of disinformation being spread about it. But yeah, I think the Ukrainians, you've had a lot of people who were previously Russian speakers in Ukraine moving over to speak Ukraine as a way of saying, screw you, Russia, we hate what you've done, and I'm now going to learn to speak Ukrainian much more properly. And so you have a lot of Ukrainians really throwing off the shackles of the Russian language as a statement there. So yeah, really good point. Thank you to Richard Bennett for gifting 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships as well. Really kind of you. And that brings us pretty much to the end of the stream as far as I am concerned. Please go and check out German Aid's resources. His website is obviously brilliant. You've seen that. Go and check him out on Twitter, where he has a presence. Here it is. If I can find it. So on Twitter, look up German Aid to Ukraine, or DE, that's Germany, DE Deutschland, DE Aid UA Ukraine. So Germany Aid Ukraine, DE Aid UA. So go and find him on Twitter. Go and find his website at deaidua.org. /en, and you'll get the database there, or you can just, without the /en, you can find his news stuff, which is, as you can see on the screen at the moment, really, really good. Thank you, matey. Any last words from you?
From me?
Yeah.
Not really. Just that I'm very, very happy that that you invited me to come and allowed me to present the website. Very important to me. So thank you also for that. Thanks for the great audience. Thanks for the time. And just want to highlight, because he said GoFundMe and buy me a coffee for me, for example. Although I do appreciate that, I want to highlight, when it comes to me, I'm doing this not for the money, and I'm not saying anyone else does it, but I would prefer, when you are willing to buy me a coffee or whatever, invest the same money into a fundraiser for the Ukrainians. So either when you say, okay, you're gifting me 10 euros, get the 10 euros and buy some, I don't know, some electronic warfare stuff for Ukrainian parties. A great resource, for example, is Konstantin, or
Yes.
or Kriegsforscher, for example. There are many, many great resources where you could, the third one, where you could rather invest your money, because they need it much, much more than me. I'm not doing this for money. Although I have my expenses, I'm paying for the hosting, of course, with my spare time, with newsletter subscriptions sometimes, because sometimes you can't avoid paywalls and all that kind of stuff. But still, I can afford it, rather invest it into fundraisers.
That's a really good point. And on that note, we are finally on the cusp of starting a NAFO truck. I can't tell you how difficult it's been, guys, but we've gone through 3 different units, and it's just fallen through either through disaster, as in personal disaster for the commander, unfortunately dying of one unit, getting blown up next to the person who we're going to be fundraising for, and then the paperwork for another unit, and then the first unit suddenly getting a vehicle just as we were going to start that up. And so we finally got another unit that we are going to be raising money for a NAFO truck. And then if that's successful, after that, one of the units that we are unable to raise for, we're going to do just personally raise, that Pierre hopefully is going to help with, raise for a quad bike for them. So anyway, just to let you know that we have been working, I say we, JR has been working really hard behind the scenes to make sure that we have got a NAFO fundraiser to work. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled, guys, and I'll be talking about that soon. But thank you all to the thank you so much to German Aid, who's been a fantastic guest as ever. Thank you all to the great viewers and the live chat and everything. I really appreciate that. You guys take care, stay on the line, German Aid, and please support him and the charities associated with him. So Constantine and Touchney have their own ones as well. So, you know, go and check those out on Twitter and at other places. Take care, everybody, and I will speak to you soon.
Bye.